Okay, now you should be able to hear me. I hope that you can. I was just saying hi to everybody and welcome to the Africam show. I'm sorry you couldn't hear me for the first few seconds, but I was very thankful that we had a great big elephant bull to start us off with. And of course, now he's leaving, but that's okay because when we were looking through the cameras before the show started, we only saw impalas. So I'm really grateful to see a great big elephant bull here at Old Donyo. Remember that we're live and interactive as usual, so please send through those questions and those comments. I am very much in the holiday spirit. Oh, jackal! Oh my goodness, I was literally thinking about jackals before the show started. Literally just thinking about jackals. And I saw one, maybe two black-backed jackals running past there. They're often seen in pairs, and sometimes when you see one, they almost always is the second one running about. But the big elephant bull does not care, although the impala did care a little bit when it saw that jackal running past. Nice! That makes me very excited. Jack Du Bois says good morning from Chesapeake. Josh Drown says good morning, everyone, from a snow-filled mid-Michigan. It's very different here, Josh. We've been getting a ton of rain, so much rain. So the environment is just bursting. It's very, very green. And the closest thing we've had to snow was some hail a couple hours ago. April Owl says, good morning, everyone. From a frigid and sunny Connecticut, you have warm cranberry blueberry muffins by your side, ready for the show. Very nice. I did have some green tea, but then I finished it. Casper Stead Ghost, you say good morning, everyone, and you are ready with your steamy hot coffee. Very nice. Jan Paula says, hi, everyone. Hi, Trish. I hope that I had a great weekend in the mountains in the bush. Oh, thank you very much, Jan. The bush is coming up this weekend, this coming weekend, which I'm really excited about. I've been getting very much into my birding over the last couple of weeks. Oh, some more elephants. What is the bird that we have here at Mino? Sorry, I'm just lifting up my laptop to have a better look. It is a duck or a goose. Very big. Ah, yes, a spur-winged goose seems right. I think those are one. Oh, sorry, I might have been very loud there. I had you right in my face. Spur-winged geese are probably my favorite geese. And it's because they're so much bigger than you think they are. I remember the first time I saw one, I thought, my goodness, no, that's huge. They could get to about 5 kgs. Very, very bulky, which is kind of why I like them. And most often when we see them in the water and you don't get to see that white underbelly. But there really is nothing else like it. Now, if you're just seeing the top and you're seeing it at a distance, like we're seeing now, then and it's in the water, you might think, oh, it could be an African black duck. But that's really the only thing you could potentially confuse it with. And it does not worry about a thing. I suppose when you are a bulky bird, you kind of know it. And you have a sense of confidence even when you have elephants around you. Like Egyptian geese, which are not technically geese, but very similar diet to a spur-winged goose. Lots of grass shoots, when you see, if you're in South Africa and you see Egyptian geese, you see them, they love lawns. They love these well-manicured lawns, botanic gardens, parks, because they eat grass shoots and particularly grass seeds. And it's quite similar for a spur-winged goose. Josh, you say you'll take South Africa's weather any day? Yes. So would I. I do love the weather here. And I suppose we complain all the time. You know, if it's raining, we complain. If it's not raining, we say how the environment needs the water. Dear NC says good morning from Seattle. You're happy to be here with your coffee. MG Leopard Spots says hello there. You've got ice water and very hot coffee. And Kaoru says hi as well. Zygote also says namaste. Namaste to you too, Zygote. And Bridget McKinney says hi. We are going to head over to Tortolis in Amboseli to have a quick look at what's going down. Seems like we have some usual suspects. Oh, this camera is stunning. Now, Jan, you were asking me about my time in the mountains. Well, surprisingly, I saw some zebra, which I wasn't expecting to see. I knew that I would see some really awesome birds in the Drakensberg Mountains, and I did. But I didn't expect to see zebras very, very close to everybody, just chilling. I think there were two birds I was really, really excited to see. One were Cape vultures, and there's large Cape vulture colonies in the Drakensberg. Oh, look, there's a zebra in the background there. A giraffe. The zebra is in the foreground, but there's a very shy giraffe blending in with the trees there in the background. Now, what I love about this camera here in Amboseli is that always reminds me of a watercolor painting because these trees look so perfectly African bush. And I love that. Now, the other bird that I was very happy to see that I'd never seen before and had never even thought about was a chorister robin-chat that I saw in the mountains. But those are the two really interesting birds I saw. The others were ones I had seen in the past. So a nice time. It's always a pleasure to spend time in the bush, whether it's Afro-montane forest like we get in the Drakensberg area, or savanna. And I always find it very difficult to choose. Now, much like the spur-winged goose, the zebra are also going after the grass, but no surprises there at all. Oh, I wonder if those are some quillas that tend to move around. And I think I saw a blacksmith lapwing. Can definitely hear them, but I think I saw a blacksmith lapwing go past as well. This, for me, as always, towards the end of the year in so many places in the Southern Hemisphere, it's just abundance. An abundance of wildlife, of water, of sunlight, and it feels like everything is happy. Of course, with this abundance, it means that everyone is taking advantage. Herbivores are definitely having a great time with fruits coming in. Grass is nice and rich and with a high water content, which is really important, and also makes digestion easier. When grasses get dry, it can be quite tough on the digestive system. We're not actually too tough on the digestive system as much as it doesn't hold as much nutrients. So now there's plenty of everything. And that also means that there's definitely plenty babies, and that makes for easy picking. So that's abundance for the predators as well. Oh, with the sunlight coming through, you can see that the black fur, the black stripes on the zebra are actually a very, very dark brown. And that makes sense because producing a full black pigment is very difficult in nature, just like producing a stark white is also quite difficult. So when we see whites, it's often sort of off-white because of the way that the light reflects with the fur. Because remember, white is essentially just a lack of pigment. But then there's also other components to structural components to fur, as well as other chemical components that can just change color subtly. There are definitely animals that do produce proper stark white and very, very black blacks, but they are pretty rare. And I mean, I think this is black and white enough, for our eyes at least. I was reading something quite interesting today about color and which came first. Were animals able to detect color before the important things that we need to detect started to create color? I'm explaining this badly, but basically, did the red apple come first, or our ability to detect that an apple is nice and ripe and that we should eat it? And the conclusion was that we are not sure, but the ability to perceive color came a lot earlier than, say, fruits or flowers, which are kind of the important things when we think about color. Now, for us to evolve the ability to detect color, so if we're looking at these zebra right now, they can't see reds, but the rest of the spectrum, then they're not bad at the visible spectrum. But their most important thing is to be able to have a good field of vision. But nonetheless, they can still detect color. And it seems that it could have been very close to when animals were actually starting to evolve, that the ability to detect color evolved too, even though those were aquatic animals and were not herbivores. So they didn't need to be able to see that something was ripe, edible, or they weren't pollinators to see that the flower is guiding them through to the pollen. And the ability to see different colors might have actually evolved to help distinguish landscapes where things where there were high contrast. So specifically in the upper water column, where sunlight was coming in and creating ripples. I mean, if you've gone for a swim in shallow water, you'd see that the sunlight comes in and creates ripples pretty much on everything. So it might have been difficult for those animals to determine whether there was a predator there or not, because everything looked so similar. So color vision was not just for us to know that something is pretty as a pollinator to attract me, or that something is nice and ripe for me to eat it, but might have just been helpful for us to navigate our environment. Because now when I think of color, I think it is the most amazing thing. All the different colors that we have with birds, for signaling, with reptiles, even with mammals, even though we are definitely not the most colorful. But when we see a zebra, we are reminded that just because we're not colorful doesn't mean we can't be absolutely beautiful. April Owl, you're wondering if the zebra is pregnant. It does look quite hefty, but it is quite difficult to tell with a zebra. Zebras are hindgut fermenters, so their gut almost always looks bloated. So it's very difficult to tell whether they're pregnant or not. To see if it looks at us straight on, we might get a better um, a bit of view because when they are pregnant, the shape is a little different, which is hard to tell from the side. It's sort of like they jut out a lot more and sort of triangular as opposed to just rounded, bloated. But it would definitely be the right time of the year. We're going to see lots of babies coming in of all sorts. Zebras have a really easy gestation period to remember, pretty much a year. The other particular problem with a zebra, because I'm trying to see if maybe it'll show show us if it's a male, which would obviously put that to rest. April owl, because I did see some male dangly bits, but I'm not sure if it was on this one. Nice. Ooh, there we go. See that shape? It's not just bloated. I think that she might be pregnant. It's not just a round, it's very bottom heavy, if that makes sense. So I think you might be right there, April Owl. And a good time too. Let us head over, speaking of babies, to Tembe. No, don't fight, because there are some Impala lambs there. Oh, hello, little lamb. Well, they always look like little aliens with their very big heads at this age. Doug May Lover, you say good afternoon. It's good to have me here. Well, it's good to have you here too. Thank you for joining us. Is this the first lamb that we're seeing? I'm guessing probably not. Otherwise, Kirst would have had a lot more excitement. Yep. And she says nope. When was the first lamb? So I need to get better at predicting this. I always predict too early when I think that, I could get ahead of it because then I predict too late. Carly Noel, you say good morning from Tennessee. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to have more people on board. Ooh, you said it must have been around the first week of November that we first saw our Impala lamb. Very nice. It does help to have, tens of different cameras all over the place to monitor when the first lambs drop. Because I always get it wrong. Always. What did you guys guess? And did anybody get it right? Now, Impala lambs will spend a lot of time doing just this, finding some comfort and safety, surrounded by the rest of the herd and their watchful eyes and ears, and just lie up. Now, as more lambs drop, you'll start to see creches form, where all the lambs just chill together, and they don't do much besides sit like this and make sure that they follow along with the rest of the herd and with mum. I find this always an interesting time of the year for Impala lambs because obviously we see very many of them. But you also start to see little, I don't even know if deformities is the right word. But unusual things like, drooped ears. If you've been watching the cameras for a long time, you would know that some Impala lambs are born with these ears that just droop down as if the cartilage is not fully formed. Ah, there we go. Kes says that you have seen some floppy-eared ones here at Tembe. Interestingly, I have only ever seen 2 floppy-eared adults. So I wonder if that kind of deformity, if it is really a deformity, has other implications. but you start to see some really interesting things. But also because there's so many of them at this stage, which is a really important thing for the predator population. Well, not only the predator population, a really important thing for impalas as a species, because their strategy, we know that they are numerous. We know that they all drop their lambs at a similar time. So in the space of a couple of weeks, there are thousands of lambs, brand new babies across the country. Hello, here you come. Have you got a floppy one ear, or am I just seeing stuff? I think it does have a floppy one ear. So predators are, there are far fewer predators than there are impala lambs. And this strategy for impalas as a species means that all those predators can only eat so much. And once they're satiated, there are still enough impala lambs that will survive and continue on onto adulthood. And this has obviously worked for them because they're the most numerous antelope that we have in the country. Hundreds of thousands compared to 1,500 leopards, for example. Bridget, that's a really interesting question. You'd like to know if the lambs go off the smell of their mum, whereas zebras use the hock stripes. Ooh, so there's a lot of good research when it comes to zebras and those hock stripes, which are the stripes just above the forelimbs, and creates a little triangle, and that's where the baby can imprint and really identify their mum. But when it comes to impala lambs, there aren't as many identifying visual features, so it's very likely that they use smell. There's also the fetlock gland that's at the back of the impala's legs, close to their feet. There we go, showing it off just above the hoof there. And it could be that that fetlock gland plays a role in scent identification. There may be other cues as well. Like if we just look at the different colors on the impala from the side here, we got the white, the beige, and then that reddy brown. Now the lines in between, those could also be unique. Back when we were doing shark research, we would actually use the lines on great white sharks that divide the top half of their body to the and their bottom half of the body. It's quite it's just their underside looks white. And if you're not trained to look for the subtleties in the way that those lines kind of delineate the top and the bottom, then it just looks like a gradient, but it's not. It's quite unique. So it could be that impala lambs are really attuned to the coat of their mothers and those subtle changes or subtle patterns. That could also be a possibility, but I haven't seen research into it. So the most, or what we think is most likely, is that you are correct and they would use the smell to identify their mother. But it does make you wonder how much variation in smell could there be? Because I have only seen a couple times where an impala lamb might move off with a different female. But scent must be sufficiently different for thousands of different lambs to be able to detect their mums. Cindy QT, you say too cute. And Darkman Lover, you also love the little lambs. Christy, you say they're so sweet, and the wildebeest calves too? I think so. I really like this kind of mocha color of a wildebeest calf. It looks like a cup of coffee. While these two chill, let's head over to Temple Plains and see if our interesting bird is still there. Only saw, oh yes, you are. Lovely yellow-billed stork. looks a little bit sad. It's really nice to see it resting, though, in this rather peculiar way. It almost looks like it's their knees bending backwards, but it is, of course, not. They're resting on their ankles, basically. It does look sad, right? Now that's some bright color. Thinking of color. Most of the time, red on the skin, the fleshy bits that we see just above the beak there, it's usually created by blood vessels. So having blood vessels really, really close to the edge of the skin, closest to the environment, can create that kind of red. There are other ways to acquire reddish pigment, like through your diet, things like carotenoids. But this is some proper red. So I'm gonna hazard a guess and say that this is a result of structural coloration together with blood vessels very close to the skin. Very peaceful, though, I must say. Doesn't look like it's actively hunting or anything, it's just resting. And given that the temperatures are also increasing. Oh, let's see how you get up. Oh, never mind, you're not going to get up. Just going to chill. I don't think I've ever seen a yellow bull stork actually sit down like this. If you were driving past in a game drive vehicle, you might miss it. Sitting like this. Mindy, you also think it looks funny when they sit like that. I know it does. And Christy, you say these guys have incredible toenails. They are very, very interesting toenails. Very dirty, usually because they're walking in the water bodies and getting quite muddy. I know he did, right, Bridget? He did look at me in disgust and sort of with pity, a little bit of pity and disgust. I mean, it doesn't make me feel very good. I always wonder what is going through an animal's head when they're doing something that is not uh what is the right word? That I'm not expecting them to do. But usually when I'm seeing storks, there or any birds near the water's edge, I'm expecting them to be moving around, to be hunting, and I'm sure there are plenty fish and frogs and insects and crustaceans, all those things that this stork would love to see and get its beak around. Sure, it's plentiful. It's not. It's just resting. I guess everyone needs some rest. But can't say I've seen a yellow bull stork just chilling like this. And they're pretty big birds too. About 2 kgs. A wingspan that's about my height or so. So really large. Well, let's leave him to relax. Maybe when we come back here, he'll be up to something. But you know what? Actually, no. Yellow bull stork, take it easy. It's the end of the year. It's time for you to relax. So let's head over to Meno Aquena again and have a look at some ellies. At the end there, it looks like, oh, so now you're leaving me. Yes, we are. I feel particularly or particular sense of relief during this season for elephants as well. Because with so many water sources filled up, it means that they can get nice clean water, but also that they can get to swim. There's sufficient water around and enough depth to take on the weight of their whole bodies. And that must feel like such relief. Normal is boring. You say you love how he folded away like a collapsible chair, right? Definitely did seem like a bit of a collapsible chair. I'm sure the Ellies would have loved that. To collapse neatly into a small little package. But alas, they are a bit too big for that. They do their own version of collapsing, but it's more like a badly made trestle table as opposed to like a camping chair, you know? Mamdu Marid, you're asking, do animals become less agile or fit as they get more into pregnancy? Definitely, there are some adjustments that will have to be made, but all let's start with mammals. All mammals that keep pregnancies as they do, they can only hold a pregnancy for as long as their body allows them to without compromising their survival. A big animal like an elephant, they can be pregnant for almost 2 years, and their size allows them to do that, and it doesn't compromise their survival. And that makes sense because elephants have this wonderful thing in the front of their faces called a trunk, and that means that they can continue to walk and move and travel vast distances and not necessarily have to stop to use their other limbs to eat or to swat flies or to defend themselves. So it's not compromising their survival too much. But then we think about big cats, even hyenas. They have such a short gestation period. It's about 100 days, or give and take a few days for the different animals. But lions, leopards, hyenas, they're all the same ballpark. When leopards are born, they're absolutely defenseless. I mean, the same for lion cubs. Eyes are closed, ears are even closed. They can't really perceive much when they even open their eyes. They don't have teeth. Um, they can barely carry their own weight. Essentially, for survival in the wild, they're almost underdeveloped to be born at that point, especially when you think about hyena cubs and the extent to which they are developed at the time that they're born, even though it's a similar gestation period, if not slightly less. They've got teeth, their eyes are open, they're able to move a little bit clumsily, but they still can. So nature has to do a toss-up between what is the end of the mother's abilities and capabilities to actually hold the pregnancy but still not compromise her survival. Now, they don't change their behaviors as much, but things like where they go, they might be a little, I mean, even risk. I don't think I've ever seen an animal be risk averse because they are pregnant. Pregnant females still engage in hunts with lions, even though she has a pride that can support her. She still engages in those hunts. Leopards don't have a group that they can rely on, so up until the very moment that she's going to give birth, if the opportunity arises for her to hunt, she's going to hunt. And I think if that wasn't the case, if, for example, instead of 3 months, the gestation period for those cats were 4 months or 5 months, which resulted in better developed young, it might also compromise their ability to hunt, which would then just result in a dead mother, which is no good to any offspring, right? So I can't say that they become less agile because they still can do all the things that they need to do. Fitness, wouldn't be able to comment on fitness. Again, though, I've never seen a mum do anything differently when she's expecting. On the day that she's going to give birth, definitely seen some differences in behavior, less focused on eating, a lot more focused on trying to find the right place to give birth, with hyenas finding the right den site, somewhere that not drawing attention to herself. Same for leopards, same for lions. Lions like pulling herself away from the pride, being on her own. So you see these behavioral changes, but it's literally on the last day or two of the pregnancy. Some animals decide, or say decide, but it's not conscious decision, but some species just altogether don't put themselves in a position where they've got to deal with pregnancy within them. Birds, for example. Birds are an amazing example because for them, the slightest change in weight is going to change how they're creating lift. Their bodies are so perfectly aligned, each the size of their wing for their weight, the feathers. So the slightest change can cause problems to their flight, and if they can't flight, that's uh, a direct issue with survival and could directly reduce their survival rates. So instead, they lay eggs. So that pregnancy can happen outside of their bodies. It means they don't have the extra weight that will directly compromise their survival. And the production of eggs is pretty quick too. But as it is when it comes to gestation period of mammals, um, egg creation and laying in reptiles and birds, it's so finely tuned to make sure that it doesn't compromise the survival of the mother. Because if it did, we'd find lots of dead mothers that just couldn't make it. And then essentially that's the death of the species. Oh, Darkmane Lover, you say sometimes you wish all animals were all herbivores only and no meat eating or omnivorous animals. I can understand that perspective. Sometimes it can be difficult to watch animals kill one another and eat one another and all those things, but it's also the way it's always been. And interesting to note that herbivorism or herbivory is a fairly recent thing in the history of life on Earth. At first, it was eat or be eaten for a long time. And Christy, you and Bridget bring up some important points as well. Although I feel Darkmane Lover's feeling is not it's not one. It's just it's emotional feeling, right? Which is really important when it comes to conservation and how we view the world. But I don't think these points are excellent, but it's not this is rationalizing. But yes, the plants would all be eaten faster than they can grow. But I suppose then even there would be uh, all everything is acted on, right, by certain environmental pressures. That's evolution. So if all animals were herbivores, um, I think the biggest problem would be overpopulation of animals. Um, there might not be balance because it's like, okay, so more plants would be eaten, but then that would be a selective pressure. So plants that grew faster would dominate, and then maybe it wouldn't be a problem. Obviously, just speculating here and making very broad statements. But that would be a selective pressure. And then, Bridget, you say, and then the earth would be overrun if that was so, and no one would clean up carcasses. There would definitely be a lot of animals. And then remember that plants don't only are not only kept in check by being eaten, they're also kept in check by mega herbivores walking through, creating space and things like that, like the elephants that we're looking at. So, if there are very, very many big animals around, would the plants even survive? Because they're constantly going to be stepped on. But these are really interesting questions, and that's why when there's an emotional response to something in nature, I think that's really good because it makes us think about these things. What happens if all animals were herbivorous? What happens if animals never fought? They never had to compete for anything. These thoughts bring up interesting questions that we, have the freedom to discuss, which is awesome. Bridget, you also say there'd be no one to clean up carcasses. That's also a really good point. What happens when an animal dies? Speaking of, I also read recently that elephants create, so when an elephant dies, because they are, a massive herbivore, um, and it's, the biggest carcass that you're going to find on land is an elephant carcass. And when an elephant dies, in that spot, there is like a very nutrient dense area that forms. And that elephant carcasses can actually help to feed nutrients like nitrogen and phosphorus to nearby plants and actually are a very important part of the nutrient cycle for plants. And I think that's a nice way to tie it all together, that whether they're all eating plants or eating each other, but regardless, there's always life and death. And in the wild, nothing goes to waste. And the death of one animal might be the difference between a plant surviving or not, which I think is a really nice way to think about the planet and all life on it. Anyway, everybody, it is time to say goodbye. Thank you for the discussions, the interesting questions, and for just coming along for the wild ride. I'll see you all on Thursday. So have a wonderful day wherever you are in the world, and see you then. Bye for now.